These luscious lemon cupcakes with lemon buttercream frosting are the perfect spring dessert for your upcoming gatherings. This recipe is super easy and it makes 24 delicious cupcakes. You're gonna love them.
Okay, so we're gonna get started. Before we cream the butter and sugar in our stand mixer here, there's a few things that we need to do to prepare. So the first thing is we have 7 egg whites, and you'll want to get them to room temperature. So do this before everything else. You'll also want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Next, we have 1.5 cups of buttermilk. We're using buttermilk in this recipe, and it's delicious, trust me. And we're gonna add, here I have 1 tablespoon of lemon extract. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add it straight to the buttermilk, give it a nice stir, and let it sit here and get to room temperature until we're ready to use it. Next, we have 4.5 cups of cake flour. Cake flour is a finer flour than regular all-purpose flour, and it'll give you a nice finer crumb in your cupcake. So 1 cup of cake flour is about 120 grams, is 540 grams. So I actually weighed it out. And then to this, and I'm going to whisk it in, we have 2 tablespoons of baking powder. And that goes. And then 3/4 of a teaspoon of regular table salt. I'm going to add that in. And I'm just going to use a whisk to incorporate that nice and evenly. And now we can go ahead and get started with the butter and sugar. All right, so now we have 2 sticks of butter at room temperature. So I'm gonna just put those right in our stand mixer here. And I'm going to use the paddle attachment. And I'll get the butter going just for a little bit on medium speed. And I have 2 cups of sugar that I'm slowly going to add in a slow, steady stream. And then you'll want to beat the butter and the sugar together for about 3 minutes and use a spatula or a scraper to at least 1 time to get everything off of the bottom and make sure everything is incorporated evenly. Okay, so we're not done here yet, but at this point I want to add, this is about 2 tablespoons of lemon zest. So for this amount, and it depends how much you pack it, it's about 2.5, the zest of about 2.5 large lemons. You can't really go terribly wrong with that. So I'm gonna put this on low. I'm just gonna go ahead and put that in there and continue creaming the butter and sugar for, again, about 3 minutes on medium. Okay, so now it's ready for our flour and our buttermilk mixture. But first I'm gonna scrape the bowl down. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to alternate adding our flour mixture and our buttermilk mixture. You'll want to start and end with the flour. So flour, buttermilk, and then end with the flour. You don't want to overbeat it. So as soon as the flour is incorporated, you're going to stop. Okay, so now I'm going to put the mixer on low. You only need low. And I'm going to add 1/3 of the flour. So basically 1/3 of the flour-ish at a time. You don't have to be too exact. So I'm just going to eyeball this. It's probably about right. And I'm going to let that go for a little bit. It's pretty good. And then I'm going to add about half of this buttermilk mixture next. Again, you don't have to be terribly exact. Then I'm going to add another 1/3 of the flour and then the rest of the buttermilk, and then I'll end with the flour. All right, so I'm about to add the last of the flour here. Flour mixture, I should say. I'm going to do that. Give it a little quick stir. And then what I like to do is I take the paddle off, and I'm going to take my scraper here, scrape off all this, and then I'll just give it a nice little stir with this and get the rest of the flour that is stuck to the side. And then we're actually going to transfer this batter into a large bowl because I'm going to use this same bowl to beat our egg whites. And then we're going to fold in the beaten egg whites into the batter, and then in the oven they'll go. Okay, now we're gonna beat our egg whites with our whisk attachment, or you can use your hand mixer, that's fine too. So these have been sitting for a bit. I'm gonna make sure that your bowl is dry. Make sure there's no water at the bottom of the bowl because it won't work nearly as well. And also make sure that you don't have any egg yolk in there. So again, our 7 egg whites into the bowl they go. And we want stiff peaks. And I'll show you what it looks like once we've gotten to that point. Okay, so I'm gonna slowly turn it on a step at a time until we get to a high setting on the mixer. And I'll show you, you don't wanna overbeat them. You want stiff peaks, but you don't wanna go too far, and I'll show you exactly what it looks like once we get going. So I'm gonna get this going a little bit at a time so it doesn't go crazy. Turn it on high enough. Make sure it doesn't splash around. It looks like it's okay. Okay, so I think we're done now. So I'll show you what it looks like. So when you pull it out, the peak will just stand straight up. Okay, so I'm gonna do this a third at a time, so in three installments. So about a third, it doesn't have to be exact. A third or so, and what I'm going to do is go in the middle and then just fold it over, turn it about a quarter, and keep going. Okay, and then once this is incorporated, then I'm gonna go ahead and add the next third of the egg whites. Okay, so we're almost done here. Make sure to scrape the sides of the bowl as well. You can see you can still see some of the egg white. So I'm just gonna keep going gently. And you don't wanna deflate the egg white, so you don't wanna overdo it. And once you no longer see any more, we're done. And we can scoop these right into our cupcake tins. So this actually makes about 2 dozen cupcakes. And you wanna fill them about 1/2 inch from the top. And they're gonna go in a 350-degree oven. Okay, so I'm gonna put them right in the oven here. And they're gonna bake for about 18 to 20 minutes, but what I like to do is at the 15-minute point, take a toothpick, insert it into one of the cupcakes, and you'll wanna get it just to the point where you don't have any more crumbs. Okay, so these cooked for about 18 minutes or so. Every oven will be a little bit different, but the foolproof tip is you'll wanna just insert a toothpick, and then once it comes out clean, then you're good to go. I like to check a little bit early so that I don't overcook my cupcakes. No one likes dry cupcakes. So I might test it a couple times in maybe 1-minute intervals until they're ready. So now I'm gonna let these cool completely, and then I'll show you how to make the delicious lemony frosting. Okay, we're gonna make our lemony frosting now. So I'm gonna add 2 sticks of room temperature butter right into our stand mixer here. And I wanna keep things as easy as possible. We're gonna need quite a bit of frosting for our 2 dozen cupcakes. So I am going to beat the butter a little bit and then add an entire bag. This is 2 pounds of powdered sugar. And then I also squeeze some fresh lemon juice. I have about 1/2 cup. Okay, so I'm gonna just turn it on low to medium to beat the butter a little bit. And we'll want the right consistency for this. So it's a little bit of give and take. So I'm gonna put it just on a little bit lower. I don't want the powdered sugar to go all over the place. And I am gonna add the whole bag. So I'm gonna do a little bit of the powdered sugar first. And then I'm gonna alternate with some of the lemon juice. Okay, so I think we're done here. I ended up using the entire 2 pounds of the powdered sugar, all 1/2 cup of the freshly squeezed lemon juice. And you can see how thick it is. You'll want it to be pretty thick. You'll want it to maintain its shape when you pipe it. And you can see it's pretty thick. I'm gonna taste it now. Oh my God, this is delicious. Okay, so you don't have to do this, but it'll make it really pretty. If you just want to use a spoon and put frosting right on top of your cupcakes, go ahead. But I want to make this pretty, so I have this pastry bag. And what I like to do is actually put the pastry bag right in a tall glass so that you can fill it with the frosting. But before we do that, so I'm going to use this piping tip with the teeth at the end because it'll give you the beautiful edges when you pipe the frosting. So I'm just going to take some scissors. This takes a little bit of trial and error. So you'll just want to cut straight across. And I know this one isn't big enough, but just to show you. And then I'm just going to drop it in, and you can see I'm going to need to cut a lot more than that. And then I think we'll be good to go. There we go. Perfect. So then I'm going to put this right in here. And then I'm going to get my frosting and I'm going to fill it. All right, so I filled my bag. You can see there's a couple inches left on top. And then next, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab it. And then I usually grab it with both hands. And I'm going to go ahead and just go around in a circle. Keep in mind you have 24 cupcakes, so I'm not going to go too crazy. How does that look? And I'm going to frost all of my cupcakes. And then we'll garnish it with something pretty. Okay, so I had just enough for all 24 cupcakes. Now notice if you like a ton of frosting, you may want to make maybe 2 batches if you want it really high. But I think this is pretty good. And I have a dehydrated lemon. Here I cut them into little tiny, very thin slices, and I used the oven on 140 degrees on a wire cookie rack to dehydrate them. And you can make a nice, pretty little garnish, or you can garnish with whatever you'd like.